The Brazilian Grand Prix is ahead of us, and if you think the controversy was going to slow down, it hasn't. But first business first, Lewis has a response for the FIA. He doesn't just have a response for the FIA, but also for any of the fans who was questioning him. Yeah, if you're one of those people who are questioning Lewis, simply saying that, why doesn't he stand up more often? Why doesn't he speak his mind? This is probably why, and I'm going to break it down. So arriving at the Brazilian Grand Prix, this race weekend in particular, Lewis has this statement to say, and he made it very clear. And this is directly regarding what happened in the Mexican Grand Prix. So Lewis has said, and I quote, "I don't know if they're aware of the weight of their decisions. They ultimately steer careers and can decide the results of championship, as you've seen in the past. This is based on the FIA decisions making from Mexico." Do you see how well these words are put together? This is not something he could easily say after jumping out the car straight away. He might have misspoke. But Lewis is a calculative individual, and he knows when to speak and he knows how to speak, especially now at this point in his career. Lewis is always the guy that gets picked on for not saying the right things. He's always the guy that gets picked on for not choosing the perfect words, for being misunderstood. I've seen Lewis getting misunderstood so many times. Just his words being taken out of context, people misinterpreting what he has to say, how he feels about a certain issue or topic. I've seen it time and time again. I remember a few years ago, Lewis went on a trip to Africa. And after his trip to Africa, he's spoken about, what a privilege it is for him compared to the people he was visiting in Africa who probably had less than he does. And just what Lewis had to say was taken out of context, even by Lewis fans. They thought he was being disrespectful, all sorts of stuff. And it's just like, how could you take these things out of context? Lewis is actually a very charitable individual. You think he's doing Mission 44 for nothing? So do you really think he would speak down to children who are living in a worse situation and people living in a worse situation? I believe these were some of the images of Lewis and his trips to Africa a few years ago. And, he was just talking about his experience, seeing people walking around without shoes, etc., etc. And, some people were saying, well, it's a little bit light skin of Lewis. And perhaps Lewis is a little bit out of touch, but does he mean ill? Does he mean malice? No. Come on now, this is Lewis Hamilton. Is it possible that the things that he said in the past have greatly been exaggerated and taken out of context? So Lewis is very careful how he chooses his words these days, because even his fans turn against him when he simply speaks like a normal fucking human being who says the wrong words sometimes, makes mistakes. Yeah, Lewis is just a human being as well, and words are just misinterpreted all the time. Like, you ever been in a relationship with a girl? Or maybe you're a girl who's been in a relationship with a guy, and sometimes your words are just taken out of context. You say one thing and they hear something completely different. We've all been in that situations with our past lovers. Now with Lewis, he has thousands, millions of people watching him. Imagine all of those people misinterpreting what you have to say. And that's what it is for Lewis. So I'm not surprised when he doesn't come out and just speak his mind. He's not allowed to. The haters don't allow him to. His own fans don't allow him to just be humans, always ready to misinterpret what he has to say. Instead of giving him the benefit of doubt and saying, I think Lewis might have misspoke, might have not chosen his words wisely, he might have not meant how I'm interpreting it, but instead he just jumped to conclusions. But what Lewis does, he goes away, he's spoken up a little bit after the Mexican GP, but most importantly, he came back with his words prepared. And there's no way of mincing these words. There's no way of misinterpreting these words. And the Lewis we have today is significantly less misunderstood compared to the Lewis we had maybe 10 years ago. That Lewis, everything he said would be misinterpreted. The media would just run for it. Even today, they try to misinterpret what he has to say. Sometimes you can see the media personnel, they're trying to goad him into saying something wrong. I've actually seen clips of this to the point where they're like, Lewis, you're not going to give us anything, right? And Lewis is like, well, it has nothing to do with me. And that's just who he has become, because we forced him to become this closed off, calculative person. As famous as he is, we don't allow these famous people to be human. So how are we going to get upset and be like, you know what, they're not being enough human? Well, every fucking time they become a human, we criticize them. And I'm speaking of myself as well. I've criticized many other people who I'm probably not as close to in terms of being their fans, but I've criticized them because maybe they misspoke, maybe they said something wrong at the wrong time, in the wrong way. Hell yes, we don't treat rich people, famous people with the same gravitas we would treat our friends. Like if your friends missaid something, you'd be like, what do you mean, bro? But Lewis is not that close to you, so you can't really check, like, Lewis, what did you mean by that? Before I jump to conclusion. I'm just saying, don't blame Lewis for being who he is today. That's, you know, 600 million in assets and wealth and extremely famous. Yes, it will affect your personality greatly. Who he was, Lewis in the early days was just very human, very human. Lewis today is just a very private person, and for good reasons, because you know why? We judge them. We judge him. We judge people like him whenever they are vulnerable. So stop asking Lewis to basically act like a child. The man is almost 41 years old. You're basically saying he should jump out of the car and just speak his mind and just go crazy. And what's most important, in Lewis' most recent years, you've heard him spoken about just how important it is to be a good example to the young kids. So the way he carries himself, wouldn't you like your children to learn from someone like Lewis? Or would you rather them learn from someone like Max Verstappen? And maybe your kid is black. And you know what? It's not good if your black kid learns from Max Verstappen. Because Max ain't black. He's white as snow. So the privilege that Max has, your kid won't have. So maybe my kid learning from Lewis is probably in our best of interests. I'm just saying, man, even Lewis fans sometimes, they just need to realize that if Lewis sneezes and the FIA just wants to arrest him. And speaking of which, Brazilian GP, sprint qualifying, they already investigating Lewis, and yeah, so I think Charles crashed out. Yeah, so I'm not gonna play the clip for obvious reasons. This is hilarious, by the way. Charles crashed out. My goodness, that's hilarious. That's speed right there. My goodness. That dude is wild. Wilder than wild. Leclerc trying to keep on track when his teammate is right behind him. Crazy. Crazy. So basically, Charles spun in qualifying for the sprint qualifying. And Lewis had to go through yellows, and Lewis was investigated, and Lewis had a poor qualifying. So yeah, it just feels like every weekend they're investigating him for something. And at this point, I don't even think Lewis gives a fuck. But he's very calculative. Even in his interviews, he just has this glimmer of sunshine, Like no matter what they do to him, he somehow just comes out with a smile. Do you have any idea how strong you've got to be Lewis Hamilton at this point? The most important governing body in the sport is completely rigged against you. They stole your championship, give it to the young guy, and every race they seems like they want to disqualify you from the entire sport. It must be very difficult being Lewis Hamilton, and somehow he rises, still rise. Additionally to Lewis Hamilton's comments on the FIA's poor decision making, he also said there isn't any clarity. And I think that's probably a part of the bigger issue, transparency and accountability. And also the secrecy that decisions were made in the background. Oof. You might be thinking, okay, these words that Lewis has said, it's not that important. It's not going to get a lot of attention. You would be wrong. These words, because they're true words, this is trouble for the FIA. And Lewis knows it. Lewis is aware that the FIA wants to play chess. And Lewis has been practicing his chess skills. So Lewis is playing chess with them too, by saying nothing wrong, but saying everything that's wrong with the FIA. Because you can't penalize Lewis and say, Lewis, you can't say these things because they're not true. This is all truth. This is all truth. And because it's truth, it's even more powerfully to impact the FIA. So you're saying Lewis is not calling it out. He is. But if you expect him to go out there and act like Max Verstappen and just loses his temper, throw a temper tantrum, absolutely not. Absolutely not. For a man who's been in the sport almost 20 years, why can't his fans simply trust him? Why can't you simply just trust Lewis Hamilton? Why can't you simply just say, you know what? I trust Lewis. I see he's playing the game smart. No, a lot of Lewis Hamilton fans simply just can't trust the GOAT. Like, what's wrong with you guys? Seriously. Shout out to the Lewis Hamilton fans who do trust their GOAT and understand that this is a process. If Lewis Hamilton comes out and act crazy, loses his cool, loses his temper, just go nuts, speak the truth, but act completely crazy, the FIA will be smiling and rubbing their hands, be like, yeah, there we go. He's doing exactly what we want him to do. They want him to lose his cool. They want him to get distracted. They want him to get mad and upset. But does he do that? No, he's unpredictable. At this point, Lewis Hamilton is the most unpredictable black man in the world. And you know what? Those racist Nazis, they hate that. They don't like a black man who's unpredictable. They like a black man who's very predictable. A black man they can walk up to and say, hey, nigger. And he turns around, punch him in the face, and he goes to prison. Lewis, on the other hand, would just walk away. He'll just walk away. Because you know what? At their dinner table, they're calling us niggers anyway. So them saying it in front of your face, they just want you to punch them, and they get a broken nose, and they send your ass to prison. That's what the FIA is trying to do to Lewis. They're trying to get him to overreact. They're trying to trigger him and send his ass to prison. And Lewis knows the game. They almost kicked him out of the sport because he spoke the truth. He said, maybe they're mistreating me or something like that because I'm black. They almost kicked him out of the sport. They forced him to apologize. Well, so what do you expect Lewis to do at this point? Honestly, I'm just speechless. I'm just saying, like, what do you honestly expect Lewis to do at this time? I think he's doing the best that he can do. You got to realize that I think Lewis is doing the best that he can do. And no matter what they do to him, he always has a smile on his face. He's always optimistic. You see that? Neither Lewis nor Charles can dance. I'm just joking. I think Lewis can dance. It just depends on the song, to be honest. I've seen Lewis pull off some good moves sometimes, but then there's other times when he doesn't have good moves. But for what he lacks in his dancing skills, boy, can he dance a car around a racetrack. And for that makes him the best dancer in the goddamn world. So yeah, I'm actually quite glad that Lewis has spoken out in this way. He's chosen his words wisely and he's brought it to the new race. He didn't just let it die out at the last race, he brought it to the new race. You see how powerful that is? So Lewis has managed to make the controversy last 2 races now. And it's all benefiting the Lewis and negatively impacting the FIA. Oh yeah, Lewis is playing the long game. Because when the FIA fucks up inevitably and it affects a white driver, maybe it affects Max. And you know they would do something about that shit immediately. Didn't Max and his family get that race steward fired? Was it Johnny Herbert? I'm not sure. I can't remember, but they got his ass fired because, he was very strict with Max. Yep, they got his ass kicked out of the FIA ASAP. Now, you see the stewards that favor Max, they're not gonna fuck up in his favor, but they might fuck up. They might fuck up and piss off George Russell, Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc, and I can guarantee you that's when the things that Lewis is saying is really gonna take an impact on the sport. If you're a true Lewis fan, you must know by now, they don't care. They're not gonna do much because he speaks out. So he speaks out in a clever way. He sets them up for failure. What Lewis does is put pressure on the FIA. This is what he's doing right now as we speak. These words, he's putting pressure on the FIA. So coming into this weekend, how do you think the FIA is going to react? If the FIA does what Lewis just says, inconsistency, secrecy, just blatant disregards for their own rules, making decisions that make no sense, inconsistency, no accountability. If the stewards fuck up this weekend again, then Lewis' words that he brought to this weekend is going to echo like a motherfucking siren. I don't think you guys get it. I think you guys are blind. Lewis is playing 3 4D chess with these motherfuckers. I want to see them fuck up this weekend. Watch them fuck up this weekend. Shit, I think Lewis might just do some stupid shit this weekend just so the FIA might fuck up again so Lewis can keep on burying them. But he does it smart, he does it eloquently. Lewis wants the FIA to make themselves the villain. He's laying a trap for them, and they're falling for it so far. They're falling for it so far. You see how obvious. Now, this time when they give him a penalty, they're going to give another driver a penalty as well, fam. So let's make sure it doesn't look like we're all picking on Lewis. And the fucked up shit is that apparently the stewards, they change on a weekly basis, or I don't know how regularly, but they're volunteers. I got a theory. F1 volunteer stewards. I got a theory about these stewards, and I'm gonna bring it back to something my ex-girlfriend said. I think it might have been last year or the year before, but she said it, and it always stuck with me. She has basically said there's no way that Max can get all of this favoritism without Max's family paying these people a shit ton of money, meaning the stewards getting the right people in the right roles to support Max. So, these roles are voluntary, so I don't even think they get paid for it. However, what if these motherfucking stewards have their secret bank accounts in Switzerland? So, if I've got a group of friends who can volunteer to steward in F1, can't I just send money privately to their Swiss bank accounts? So technically they're working for me, but technically they're not. Remember now, F1 as a sport, or FIA, is not even registered in Switzerland. Switzerland lives on its own rules. That's why it's called Switzerland for a reason. It's its own thing. It's where everyone owes their money because it's the one place that no one wants to attack because it would jeopardizes everyone's money, including their own. So Switzerland is Switzerland for a reason. Very private when it comes to money and stuff like that. So it's just a theory, Oh my God. Here's another thing. Jos Verstappen, is a Jos or a Vos Verstappen, whatever the fuck his name is, says this: Piastri can't have suddenly forgotten how to drive, right? If I were him or his manager Mark Webber, I would bang my fist on the table internally. I don't like Verstappen. I don't like him. I don't like him or his dad at all. But I gotta say one fucking thing. The way this motherfucker supports his son is unreal. And he's not joking. Obviously, he's part of the Max Verstappen management, I suppose. He means that shit. When the ship's not sailing correctly, this motherfucker will do anything to get the ship back on course, including firing Christian Horner, including leaking private information about Christian Horner. An inside coup d'etat, bro. Oh, he's ruthless. Honestly, him and Christian is cut from the same cloth. But at some point, those ambitions overlapped, and somebody had to go. And Christian is the one who fucked up recently, so... By the way, GTA 6 is delayed. Thank fuck for that. Honestly, it's a blessing. I've been waiting for GTA 6 to be delayed again. The fashion this week has been very incredible. I gotta say, Lewis really, really, really delivered with his outfit. That's cold. That is cold. Frosty cold. But yeah, Jos Verstappen out here, I hate to say this, but making some good points, which is it's just almost impossible to admit that I agree on that one syllable with this motherfucker. But that's about it. That's about it, fam. But I'm glad Lewis has spoken the way he's chosen to speak. It's good. This is one motherfucker who shouldn't be speaking. Alonso about the comparison of McLaren 2025 versus 2007. Here's what this motherfucker had to say. I don't think it's exactly the same scenario. I remember Ron Dennis saying in China, we were racing against Fernando, not against Kimi. That's fucking hilarious. That's towards the end of the season. By this time, Fernando has fucked up so much in the team. Yeah, Ron Dennis pretty much hated him at this moment. They hated each other, to be honest. But listen, the shit that Alonso was doing was wild. He was going around giving out money to his mechanics and shit in paper envelopes. Like, imagine can't beat a rookie and you're going around giving out paper bags full of money. You can't beat a rookie. And you know, I'm going to go on a tangent temporarily for a minute. The Lewis Hamilton and Fernando situation, let's not be honest. Let's be very honest. Let's be very honest and transparent. Thank you, Lewis. The Spanish culture is known for being extremely racist against black people and brown people. And it's strange because some of them are actually kind of brown. They're tannable. But there's no secret that the Spanish culture fucking hates us, you know? So I'm not surprised if Fernando grows up with that in his environment and his mentality. I'm not fucking surprised. And there's one thing you get told as a white kid growing up with all of that privilege is that a black man is nowhere close to being your equal. So here comes Fernando, you know, school in Schumacher 2005, 2006, school in Schumacher, the guy they said is the greatest of all time, school in Schumacher. Here comes a motherfucking rookie. Fernando's like, at the end of the season, you know, I'm not even worried about this rookie. Whatever he can bring, I can overcome him. Lo and behold, this rookie happened to be Lewis motherfucking Hamilton. And Fernando did not expect a black man to not just be his equal, but at such a young and early stage in his career, out racing him, destroying him in Fuji, overtaking him in the first corner on the first lap and in the first race of the season. What the fuck? 9 straight podiums? What the fuck? Fernando's brain, his racist motherfucking brain, could not compute what a black man was able to do at 23 years old. First season in F1. Because he's been told his entire life, black people are less than. They're not equal. They're not even people. Remember now, they don't even think we're people. They don't even think we're humans, which is ironic because the first Homo sapiens, the original humans, the 100% humans, develop in Africa. It's ironic, isn't it? The people who are the most humans, they get labeled as the least human. That's how racism works. So I'm not surprised that after all of these years, he still can't get over it. I also remember in Monaco, Ron Dennis did not prioritize Lewis Hamilton. When Lewis was the clear faster car, he did not prioritize Lewis overtaking Fernando. So Fernando's saying in China, mate, by that point, I'm surprised they didn't kick you out of the fucking team. I'm not surprised they were like, we're racing against Alonso. Of course, by that point, you didn't destroy the relationships you had in the fucking team. You expect them to be loyal to you? They might have started out loyal, but up until the Hungary GP where you held up Lewis, do some unprofessional bullshit. Oh yeah, bro. Up until that point, I think it was fairly reasonable. But you know what? I don't think McLaren was giving Alonso the full ownership and control of the team. And what the fuck you expect? Ron Dennis is running the motherfucking team. At no point would Ron Dennis give full control to anyone of that team. Like a Schumacher, walk around here like you're God. No. Ron Dennis don't run his operations like that. Ron Dennis is that kind of motherfucker he's colder than Toto. He's colder than Jean Todt. He's colder than Christian Horner. Ron Dennis is colder than anyone you've ever fucking met. You're not gonna go in that team and boss him around. And Fernando could not handle that for one. He also couldn't handle the fact that they wanted to give Lewis a clear shot because most of the time Fernando would be like, I'm the faster driver. I should get priority. I should get priority. And they're not actually, we need to be fair to Lewis. And he's like, what do you mean? That's favoritism. No, that's not favoritism. That's just being fair because the guy is actually really fast as well. And you know, that's the thing about racists. That's the thing about racists, you know. Notice racist people is that equality to them is a disservice. Equality to them seems like you're taking away something from them. Because in order for a white to be equal to a black, you got to sort of bring the black up. And that's what Fernando felt like he was I'm telling you, he was raised with a racist mindset. So even if that team tried to give both drivers equality to Alonso felt like a disservice to him. It's a strange racist rhetoric kind of mindset. And I'm trying to explain it in the best way, but I'm telling you, he was definitely raised racist. And it confirmed that because when Lewis was experiencing the racism, the horrible fucking racism at the Spanish GP of all places, Fernando said he should have expected that. Lewis should have expected that. Bro, it's not just that Lewis is a rookie. It's more that Lewis is black. And his brain can't compute the fact that Lewis is black. I don't think this guy right here was told the truth about black people. If he was told the truth about black people, that black people are not just your equal, they exceed you. They exceed you in melanin, which means that they exceed you in speed, reaction. That's why black people tend to be really good at power sport, speed related sport. So sprinting, boxing, things that you have to have power, good reaction, endurance. That's why we tend to have faster reactions. Fast twitch muscles is the high component of melanin. Unfortunately, Fernando was not explained these basic human things. He was explained the opposite to this. He was told that he was better than any black man. Now, Felipe hasn't given me any reason to think he's racist, but the environment, and to be honest, someone can be raised in a racist environment and not become racist, if I'm being completely honest. I'd say it's more the environment, but Felipe, I don't know if Felipe is a racist or not. He hasn't given me any signs or any reason to believe that he is. So, yeah, he's nowhere close to as bad as Fernando. That's for fucking sure. But listen, we're gonna end this video here. One last thing. And I said this, I retweeted this. I saw Lewis Hamilton acting in his new Perplexity ad. Fantastic acting skills. You know what? I've noticed, like, for the last 3 years, you know, his acting skills has just gotten so much better, and they continue to improve. And I'm just like, I actually tweeted. I sent out a tweet. I'm gonna let you see it for yourself, because I was really happy with his acting skills. So I send out a tweet. I basically say, you know what? Fuck F1. Let this man retire from this dreadful and pathetic sport, and pursue his acting career. He's got my blessing. Seriously. Yeah, wouldn't it be great to, like, every 3-5 years you see Lewis coming out with a new blockbuster movie with Apple or something like that, maybe race related, maybe not. That'd be great. Yeah, fuck F1, bro. Fuck F1. Listen, I really think Lewis is just, you know, he's giving it another shot, you know. He knows there might be another opportunity for another title fight, and he wants to give it another shot. A couple more wins, a few more podiums, a nice way to go out the sport. I think he's got this covered. You see what I'm saying? I think he's got this shit covered. Not to mention, the man has some wicked football skills. What the fuck? What the fuck? Like, and he's actually spoken about it recently. I saw a quote where he was saying, like, you know, when he was younger, early teenage days, he was looking to try out, you know, in football, like semi-professionally. I was like, what the fuck? And I tweeted the perfect tweet. Bro has always been Brazilian. Seriously, he's got some decent skills. He's got some decent skills, man. He's got some decent skills. Listen, we're gonna end it here. Thank y'all for watching. Subscribe. I didn't know who she was until now. Julia Rodriguez. That's all I got to say, brother. That's all I got to say, brother. That's all I got to say. Listen, I don't know why you guys are not following me on Twitter. How you guys expect me to open Twitter spaces after the race if you're not following me on Twitter? By the way, this Sunday we might actually do a live stream for the race. We might. This way I can promote the Twitter. This way I might even make the Patreon and promote that as well. We'll see. But yeah, let me know what you think about the Patreon idea. Would you actually subscribe to $15 a month? But also, like, you know, it's not exactly for extra content per se. It's mostly just to, you know, support me continuing these videos. That's what it really is. That's literally what it really is. Financial support would help to ease up my time and essentially allow me to make more videos, and better, more professional videos, and perhaps live streams on these weekends, and more live streams more often. So it would just benefit the old channel. It would just get more content just out there for everyone. But yeah, I'll see you in the next video, okay? Peace.